The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, Lord.
At that time Jesus said to the crowds of the Jews, "I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread which I shall give for the life of the world is my flesh." The Jews then disputed among themselves, saying, "How can this man give us his flesh to eat?" So Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is food indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me, and I in him. As the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so he who eats me will live because of me. This is the bread which came down from heaven, not such as the fathers ate and died. He who eats this bread will live forever." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
What's a red herring? You might think it's a fish, reddish in colour. That's what a red herring is. And it has a strong flavour, a strong scent, sometimes strengthened by being salted. But is it just that, a red herring? You might be in a conversation, a group of you discussing something, or you might be watching something on television or wherever, and somebody will say, "Don't listen to him. What he's just said is a red herring." Well, had he been changed into a fish? Unlikely. But why a red herring? Well, it goes back about 200 years ago, when a journalist wrote a short story in which someone, to stop hounds tearing apart hares, used to go along with some red herrings. And the scent of the herrings misled the dogs, which instead of chasing the hares, chased the red herring. That's why in conversation, when someone says, "Oh, that's a red herring," they mean it's misleading. It takes us away from where we want to go. Now, what about today's procession? Here we are, processing through Oxford with a Blessed Sacrament. Is that a red herring? Does it in some way mislead us about the Blessed Sacrament? Although we've been doing it, when allowed, for the last 700 years. What is then the Blessed Sacrament of the Eucharist? Well, it's three things really, and we'll see if today's procession is a red herring or an expression of faith. The first thing a sacrament of the Eucharist is is the sacrifice of the Mass. And the host we're adoring now was, of course, consecrated during Mass. No Mass, no host. So that side of a Blessed Sacrament is not taken away from us as we process, although this now is not a Mass. We are not at Mass. So the first aspect of the sacrament of the Eucharist is there. The host was consecrated during Holy Mass. The second aspect of the sacrament of the Eucharist is communion. No one here this afternoon will go to Holy Communion. So is that a red herring, the procession, taking us away from one of the fundamental meanings of the Eucharist? Well, no, because of course the host we are adoring will be consumed, will be Holy Communion. So there's no separation there. But what of the third part of a sacrament? The Holy Sacrifice, Holy Communion. Well, the third part of a sacrament is adoration, which of course we show during Mass and in receiving Holy Communion. But this afternoon, in this procession, without celebrating Mass, without receiving Holy Communion, we adore. We adore because we are devoted to Christ. Now, devotion is interesting and rather important. What's the difference between knowledge and devotion? Generally, in religion, it's better to go from the known to the unknown. And here we are adoring this immense mystery, but go from the known. You can know someone, you can know lots of people, and not be devoted to them. To be devoted to someone involves more than knowledge. It involves knowledge plus love. That's what being devoted to someone means. I know her, I know him, I love them, I'm devoted to them. So that's what we're showing this afternoon, our devotion to Jesus Christ, whom we know by faith and love by devotion. That's what makes us come in procession to express our inner devotion, knowledge plus love, and witness. We inwardly adore Christ, adore God, but we don't always show it. Well, this afternoon is an occasion to manifest, to show our devotion. And we'll do it through shops, passing by shops and parts of a university and houses and offices and all kinds of places. We will witness publicly to our devotion to Christ. But tomorrow, Monday, and every other day, we won't be witnessing so publicly, but each of us has to be a witness. Otherwise, our devotion stays in the head. It's knowledge of the faith, all right. It's knowing quite a lot about God and about Jesus. But is it love? Because knowledge without love does not make for devotion. To be devoted is to know and love.